good. So I think, I hope you guys are having a good session. Uh, let's just get to the point here. I'm just trying to kind of cover a little story around HDFC Bank because, we've gone through a fair bit of, our own challenges, our own kind of, structural issues. And we've been kind of moving from a legacy old construct bank to a modern kind of a technology bank. And it's not easy, it takes time. But I think slowly and steadily we are getting there. So with that, what I want to just give a little sense of how large the ecosystem. I call this entire strategy a shift right. And there's a reason for that. And you'll see the next slide coming up, why I call it as a shift right. Because in development world, we are kind of going shift left. All of you would agree that we're talking about shifting left, whether it's DevOps, whether it's DevSecOps, whether it's test automation, everything we're moving to the left. But in the banking, I think we have to move right, and that's why this whole thing is called shift right, this vision. Now, how big is the bank? I mean, we normally talk about, when we talk about scale, we usually look at the usual fintechs, the e-commerce giants and all. But we don't think about banks from this perspective, right? A lot of us think, okay, banks are there. They just do things silently at the back end. But just see the volumes here. I mean, a bank like ours kind of today does about 6 crore customers a month we touch. So on average, it's a huge number by any means, We gain about 126 million visitors, about, again, 61 million inorganic, which come to the websites. Look at the transaction enablement. We do about 17% of the RTGS, about 9% of the NEFT, and about 12% of the UPI transactions as a single bank, actually. So we're doing all of that. The focus on digitization has been very, very intense, so to say. We basically look at digitization as one of the key drivers. And we look at 3 buckets, acquisitions, transactions, servicing. And if you see in each of them, we've done decently well on acquisitions. When I say acquisition, these are account opening, whether it's loan booking, savings account, any of the acquisition things, Transactions, again, most of the payment transactions today. And then, of course, servicing, So if you see where we still need some way to go is on the servicing side, where we are about 73% today. We want to kind of move to the 90s out there. So technically, you get into the branch also, everything should be digitized, even from a service aspect. So that's where we are going on that. A lot of partnerships. People think about us as a state bank, late bank kind of a legacy bank. We aren't. We work with a lot of fintechs today. So we did almost 3 large launches. If any of you are following, Swiggy card is a brilliant card if anybody is using it. It's a co-branded card. It's a real transactional card. It's not a point kind of a card that comes with a non-tangible reward. If you want to kind of look at it, it's a great card. We did some with Tata Neo, one of the largest acquirers on Tata Neo platform on the card side. Marriott Bonvoy is another tribe that we recently did. These are all very good fintech partnerships. Besides that, I'll also talk about many other tech. This is more the business tie-ups. Besides that, we do a lot of tech collaborations also. So we're getting there. We're slowly moving into a zone where large scale, a lot of digital enablement, and then a fair bit of ecosystem partnerships with new players, actually. So that's pretty much what this slide is. But having said that, what are the kind of core trends with this shift right that I'm talking about? So we think there are about 6 kind of buckets which needs to kind of look at. Digital transformation, we keep hearing this word, but that's not the only word the thing that you look at it. Open banking, fintech integration, mobile payments, personalized banking, and GenAI. We think these are 6 pure buckets on which the transformation edifice is built, actually. So basically, you're kind of looking at all of this to be able to weave out a larger vision of how do you get digitized. So that's pretty much what it is. And each of them has importance. I think today, if you look at it, and I'll talk about it a little bit in each of these boxes, digital transformation I've spoken about. I think open banking is here to stay. And I was kind of having a quick conversation with Yamini also just a couple of minutes back. World has moved to headless. A lot of us are not realizing that. Today, our biggest engagement channel is not our mobile app or not our net banking, but it's our chat banking. So what's happening? The customer is saying, look, Not necessarily, I will come to you when I need you for something specific. But if I'm on a channel which I'm using all the time, why do I need to come? I should be able to transact on that channel. So what we are seeing is this open banking is kind of moving into what we call as banking as service, and I'll talk about it in a bit. But that's what the headless API structures are required. They basically create a backend capability that can be then pushed onto any of the front ends, actually, and I'll talk about some of the cases out there. Fintech integration, again, like I spoke about, both open banking and fintech integration go very closely. Mobile is a very, very interesting. Why I say mobile payments, it's not yet done. A lot of us think that the GPay, PhonePe, Paytm story is done. It's not done. There is lots to do there. You will see a fair bit of revolutionary things coming out. For example, we will start living with offline payments. It's here and now, actually, with Litex, with a lot of tap and pay kind of features coming in. Similarly, I think Rails on mobile is changing. UPI, to my mind, today is the payments, but with UPI and credit and UPI on cards, you will see that transformation into a lending kind of a platform, transactional lending platform. That's going to happen. All of this has to be done by the mobile apps, actually. So banks can't sit back and think, oh, mobile payments, mobile apps are not, it's okay to build once, and I'm happy to keep it that way. And that's an area that we are focusing. I'll talk about it. Not yet there, but lots to do here. Personalized banking, I think, very critical. See, well, all of the pillars are tech-led. I think this pillar is engagement-led. We cannot reinforce. I mean, you're here with a company that Waymo kind of looks at this as one of the strongest pillars, right? I mean, we can talk about any technology, but if you don't engage with the customers, frankly, nothing is going to, even in the last session, people spoke about empathy, about engagement. These are touch and feel factors. They're not going anywhere. It's just that the technology will aid them. So I do see the last one, the AI ML, actually pushing into personalized banking through what is called co-pilots. So like one of the simplest things that we are trying to do is see whether statements can be read through GenAI, and you can offer it as an API so that any of the relationship managers first looks at your statement before he talks to you. Or whenever you call a contact center, the person should be able to kind of analyze your statements. And that co-piloting can be done by an AI engine, right? A GenAI engine. Because then you can know where is the money going, where has the last 4 service issues have come, what are the kind of transactional behaviors that you're seeing on the statement. So this is what is happening. So if you see the boxes around it, finally it will send it. To me, whatever we do in technology, finally the human element will be there. It's not going anywhere. Okay. And it's going to be the single most driving factor. So this is pretty much the kind of foundational slide that we're looking at. This is a very important slide. I mean, we call this, this is one of our vision statements. It's kind of, even at our board level, we kind of look at this as a directional movement. So what we see is that banks have been very product-centric for ages together. All of you would agree that we started with core banking at the center, and then we said everything should be around core banking. So we kept building, payments came, customer information started sitting on core banking, validations, beneficiary, limits, everything started going into core banking. But if you put your mind to it 30 years back, what was the genesis of core banking? It was basically to convert the ledger, right? Now, what have you done today? You've loaded that whole system, monolithic system, and UPI has been a game changer. Suddenly, from a 500, 600 TPS, I mean, the bank, for example, we've shifted to 2,500 plus TPS, just in 3 years, 4 years' time. How can a monolithic core keep taking more and more functionalities? So we have to fundamentally look at how do we move. This was the old vision where you had core banking, then came data, then came APIs, then you build channels around it, and then you will look for partnerships. Like, this is pretty much the product way. And in fact, we always used to onboard customers as products. Oh, this guy is a credit card customer. This guy is a retail asset or a mortgage customer. This guy is a CASA customer or deposit customer. And then when you call the bank, you'll find that, oh, please give me 4 more documents to be able, or give me all the documents again to rebuild another product with you. That is because we always looked at core at center, and then each core, whether it is retail asset core, credit card core, CASA core, they were all segregated. And then you will actually try and get a customer at the back end stitched together. That's like the old way. So what are we seeing now? We are actually clearly seeing that the center has moved to data. Right? All of you would agree with me that today you have to look at customer at the center, which means you start onboarding a customer. Don't onboard a product. And that's when your true AI ML capabilities has come through. Then, of course, what's happening is around us, core is getting now hollowed out or getting distributed. That's what I call as microservices-based core. It's not necessary that everything has to be microservices, but distributed core has to come very clearly. Then, of course, you have the API orchestration layer. Why it is important? See, banks have kept plumbing APIs from the system, which means every time you want to open an account, you want to fetch a balance, you want to kind of convert a joint to single account, you will always go into system and replumbing. System should give only very fundamental APIs. All of the orchestration has to happen in the middle, and that's why when you become truly headless, right? Because your API sophistication in the middle, and I call this a switchboard strategy. You know, it's akin to the electrical wires. I mean, all of us have wired our homes like the pole, electrical pole in the old days, without having a switchboard in the middle. So that's very simple way, but that's the reality of the API banking, right? So that's why we're trying to challenge that, saying, can you build an enterprise layer, you know, API orchestration layer, which talks about bundling, transient data, common DPI hooks. These are very, very fundamental today. So when you're looking at your architecture, API components sticking to each of the microservices core based is very important. You cannot go back and plumb your core banking all over again for APIs, actually. Then, of course, you know, channels continue to kind of, you know, play an important role. But then what's also happening, the last layer, if you see, is the banking as service, like I spoke about. I mean, why would a customer today, take a look at it, take a very simple example. A person wanting to book a car loan, already a corporate salary account customer, got promoted 2 weeks back. Why would he come to a bank site if all the data is available in the HCM database? It should be a 2-click journey. I should know he's got promoted, I should know his salary levels, I should know what car he qualifies for or what loan he qualifies for, and that should be given to him. Why should he even come to the bank? Another example, take a customer sitting in New York and trying to do a JP Morgan transaction on his overseas account. He wants to remit funds to his parents on UPI with an NRO account. Why should there not be an SDK sitting along with JP Morgan app? This is a new world. That's why this banking as a service is a very, very different concept you're talking about. WhatsApp banking is nothing but a banking as a service at the end of the day. So you will see more and more headless going, and this is happening. It's happening all around us. It's happening silently, whether we like it or not. Banks might have a little, you know, contra view saying, are you allowing the UI UX to go to the third party? But we'll have to fight the battle. So it's a very interesting play out. And when you do this product-centric to customer-centric, this is when you shift right. That's the strategy that I'm talking about. And then you do it through basically foundationally looking at journeys, channels, core, data, and then security is a very core foundation. So when you do move from left to the right, those 5 pillars, you know, and each of those pillars have to be transformed when you look at the large core banking, a large banking technology transformation. enriched. I spoke about bundle journeys. Digital forms, I do see that as a big thing. For example, we are going on a very big mission to eliminate paper from our banks, branches, zero. We want to get to a stage where next couple of months, nothing is, even an interaction of a form filling. Assume it's something which cannot be digitized. As an example, it could be something like some nominee detail that's not available as an API. I'm giving an example. You should still be able to send this as a digital form, take the data input, and it could be on a WhatsApp, okay? And then you just backfill that, and the ops guys kind of just look at validation beyond that. So various forms of journeys are being built today. Headless, form digitization, third-party kind of UI, UX, bundling. So the journey engineering is becoming very, very important for banks, actually. Then what do you look at it next? I'm sorry. Just bear with me. I think it's taking a little time. Can just somebody look at it? Yeah, I think it's just taking time. Okay. Channels, like I spoke about it, I think one of the biggest pillars in channels is this spanning transactions. We are seeing more and more tap, touch, and voice as interchangeable. I mean, channels, for example, why voice is not taken into consideration today? Why should you're standing in a crowded place, you have a headphone, and you just want to kind of put a transaction onto your mobile banking. Why would you try and tap 3 times, right? Similarly, regionalization on voice is a very big aspect. We do think it's a very transformational aspect that today a Bhashini API can be embedded into your mobile app, and you could do very different things with it, just from a voice recognition. In fact, if you call up our call centers today, you can actually do a Hindi, English, Telugu, and you can mix it up, and it will kind of understand what the bot will understand. So I think it's not just about one way of tap. The way we're looking tap, touch, and voice, all of them have to come together into the channels, actually. So it's kind of looking larger thing. And like I said, then each of your channels have to be AI/ML embedded. There's no doubt about it. And then, of course, this has to be at scale. So this is what we are looking from a channel perspective, how we are thinking of channel strategy. Then the most important, we can't forget the back end. Whatever happens, your core has to be distributed. And it's very important to keep we work with a very interesting concept called active-active. What does it mean? Most of our core, new core that we are building, we are not looking at a monolithic RDBMS. A lot of you, I don't know if any of you some of you might have come from engineering background. We've all been taught a theory called CAP theory, actually. It's consistency, availability, and partitioning theory. What it says is that if you write it in one place, a data, you can't write, at the same time in another place in consistent way, in available way. You can only choose 2 out of 3. If you are consistent available, the partitioning cannot come. Right? If you want consistency, partitioning, availability will not come. It's a very interesting theory. And that's how most of the relational databases have been built across the world. That's changing. Google disrupted it with atomic clocks. And now that's being used by a lot of new engineering companies. But banks are yet to wake up. Why? Because banks have the biggest use. Imagine if I'm writing the transaction on one database, and I'm able to take it and write it somewhere else in less than nanoseconds. I will always be active-active. So when my core banking is down, when my core banking is under maintenance, my core banking has come under extreme load because of a UPI search, I'm able to distribute. So this is a very foundational aspect that we're looking at. It's saying most of our engineering has to become core active-active, actually. Then, of course, we speak about cloud native. I think it's very important. I'm not kind of saying cloud is the only way to go. There's a difference between, we always confuse. So cloud means, the 3 CSPs, not necessarily. It's about engineering. So it's about looking at, cloud native stacks, looking about, automated testing, DevOps, all of that comes together. It's more about cloud native stack. We've shifted quite dramatically. I mean, today, 25% of our workloads are on cloud, actually. And we don't do, we do payments, we do customer service, We're doing data. We're pretty much doing everything on the cloud today. So we shifted quite nicely. But like I also believe that the engineering has to change. It's not just going to the CSP with your existing legacy app, but also moving the engineering, actually. So that's something that we are moving quite well. And like I spoke about real-time DR, when you think about active-active, see today one of the biggest problems that the banks like HDFC have, if we go down for even 3-4 minutes with that social media, press, everybody is at us. And you can't change that. Every financial institution will come into this so-called scrutiny because the customer expectations are like that. And you cannot think that I will wait for half an hour, pull my log ships from database, put it somewhere else, and then bring my DR up. Because 30 minutes, 30 minutes is very, very critical. So what we are doing is we're slowly moving to what I call like the active DR or active-active architecture. You'll see some of these differences coming in our new launches. Still some way to go, but we have started moving on that direction. Data is extremely critical. That's sitting right at the center of the strategy. See, finally, any bank that needs to leverage its data, the data has to be good. You can do whatever AI/ML. You will only get garbage if you're not able to get your data strategy right. And it's very difficult, by the way. Getting data strategy right is the most difficult part. We struggle all the time. I'm very honest about it. It's not easy. How do you look at ETLing? How do you organize? How is your data universe built? Number of systems being plumbed, reporting layers not being well done, data dictionaries not being available, constant challenges on the data side. And till you solve for it, and there are solutions today. You don't have to do ETLs in the classical way. You don't have to do data organization in the forms that we used to do earlier. You can just go on flat denormalize structure and stuff like that. So a lot of work happening in the entire data engineering part. So we are moving slowly to what I call as the cloud-ready data architecture. One of the biggest things that I see is enabling data as a co-pilot for the employees. I spoke about it. Every area, imagine a core banking screen, or even in an insurance screen, whichever industry you are in, you need a co-pilot, a co-pilot hook onto your screens. And imagine the productivity that it's going to bring in. That's the real use case of a Gen AI, rather than trying to say, I will give the prompt to the customer, and it's not going to happen. It will happen in a graded manner. So this is a very interesting thing that's happening, and we are seeing as Gen AI and AI/ML being at the center of this co-pilot strategy. Of course, privacy is coming in a big way. All of you are aware of DPDP Act. And just trust me, it's not funny. I'll just give you a simple anecdote. A couple of weeks back, we had a customer who wrote to us saying, delete my data. This is the new Privacy Act. What do you do as a technology person? Or even as a product person? You don't know. Because if you delete the data, it's a closed account. But there are legal, fiduciary requirements that the country has. So what do you do with it? If a request like that. I mean, if you go to a European country, they will tell you there is a GDPR. It's been in works for 6 years. They know how to archive, delete, where to keep it, air gap it. We're not ready. We're not even close to it. Consent. So that framework has to come in a big way. In fact, next 1.5 years, this will be a very hot topic as we speak about. And each application has to start looking at it from a privacy angle. For example, if I'm a front-end application, the account is closed, I would even go to the extent of saying, OK, every front-end accesses for the bank staff is done. I will put it into a vault, and under a certain condition, which is required as per the regulatory requirements, that access can be provided. This is a lot of engineering required to do this in an application mode, right? So this is very critical. And then, of course, like I said, these are the kind of pillars that we're looking from a data perspective. The last bit, I don't want to kind of, lose the focus. Security is at the edge. Today, a bank like ours gets millions of hits on a daily basis. When I say hits, these are security probes, security kind of, attacks, whatever you want to call it. And so what we are thinking here is slightly different. One, you need to have a reconnaissance methodology, which means you are not waiting for the attacks. You are actually going and figuring out what's happening in the dark web. You need to have that capability. That's a very different capability. which means you're having a series of networks. You're having a series of technology to exploit to see who is doing what against in your ecosystem. It's also very complex because banks have outsourced quite a lot. SaaS models, right? You need to kind of keep probing. I mean, that's a reality. You cannot ask for a checklist-based audit. I mean, I see still a lot of our third-party agents get checklist audited. You go send a big five auditor, he goes through, does some checks and comes back and says this particular SaaS partner is safe. We are joking, actually. You need to be able to probe what's happening in the perimeter of the SaaS provider all the time. Right? It's a very interesting thing that's kind of coming up. So that's why I call this 24/7/365 reconnaissance all the time. Okay. Then, of course, the other one that I wanted to talk about is edge and identity security. We are no longer looking at security as bank perimeter. Those days are gone. Even a customer's mobile app has become our perimeter. And that needs a very different security construct, whether it's in terms of key handling, cache management, in terms of, like I spoke about, a lot of probing technologies to look at it. So security is changing big time today. We always used to think zero trust architecture, we will build firewall, IPS, IDS, DAM, and we'll be happy with it. Those days are gone. You really need to use AI, ML, you need to be always on the networks, you have to also understand what customer devices are doing. You also need to know what your partners' ecosystems are working. So the entire thing has to come together in one way. So this is pretty much what the security architecture that's kind of coming out, So, okay, some very quick launches. I mean, these are some things that probably you would have seen. I don't know how many of you have seen PayZap recently. Very interesting. Why it's interesting? This one, the only card which gives you a very interesting tap and pay option. Unlike a lot of other apps that give you tap and pay, but they wouldn't give you scan and pay. Both will come together in the same zone. For example, we have a digital card I'll talk about in the next slide, where you could actually build a credit card the way you want to. It's not built on Vision Plus platform, it's built on a different platform. But what it does is that it allows you to do billing cycles on your own, it allows you a tap and pay on the go. So you could just be in a UPI ecosystem and go and scan and pay, but the minute you're in a Master Visa network, you could move to a tap and pay in the same mobile app, right? Then we don't use OTPs in the new app, which is another interesting thing. We are moving to a passwordless world. And this is one of the apps that if anyone of you has used it, you don't need. You go to a commerce site, come back, you just need to do swipe and pay and move forward. So it's an interesting thing, lots of stuff, so just have a look at it. I'm not kind of putting a marketing speech here, but this was built with a lot of technology, new technology framework. This entire platform is on cloud. It's completely built with the kind of constructs that I spoke about, and it's kind of coming out quite well for us. The next one is we just built a nice, this is the Pixel card we talk about. Very interesting. You can build your own card. You can choose your billing cycle. You can select your design of the card. You can customize rewards. So you are a Flipkart guy, not an Amazon guy. And the 10% you want to move 8% to Flipkart and only 2% to Amazon, you can do all that stuff on this card. Okay. So it's a very interesting. I mean, it's completely tap and pay. You can do pay in parts, not an EMI. This is kind of just break up your card payments and pay in equal parts, actually, without the EMI kicking in. So lots of new features on this card, and it's born digital. There's no plastic. Only if you want, you have to ask for a plastic, actually. Okay, so, okay, and then like I said, we continue. One of the biggest things that you will see from the bank is a new mobile app. Okay, it's already there in beta. Some of us are using it. Again, completely, why I wanted to put this, we're building our own mobile app. We didn't go to a third party, not because we didn't believe, but we think the channels, the way we want to control the channels or kind of be the best in the user experience, you will need a mobile app that's your own engineered, actually. So we actually built this out of Bangalore factory. Very interesting, about 150, 160 people built this. All engineering professionals, not too many bankers. Yes, we also moved some of the banking guys from Mumbai into the team because we wanted to ensure that the banking domain knowledge is there. But this was completely born native mobile app. So banks are actually, and what I wanted to kind of talk about is banks will move to technology development. Not in all the areas, not necessarily, but in some areas they need to have a cutting edge to do that. So that's pretty much what's happening at the bank, and I just thought this session would give you an overview. Again, like I said, I want to be very clear. This is not saying, oh, we have done everything with the best. No, we have a long way to go. But the transformation to the shift right has started. And I see a lot of banks, they will have their own strategies, but it will be somewhere in similar modes or similar thought process that will come through.